Every single one went their way. Dark money lurked behind the Federalist Society turnstile that picked the justices. Dark money lurked behind the secretive agency down the hall from the Federalist Society that ran the ads for them. Dark money lurks behind the flotillas of front group amici curiae who tell the justices in orchestrated chorus how to rule. You'd never know any of this from our Republican friends in the committee. But the American people have seen those decisions. And more they understand that the court is rigged, that it is now the court that dark money.
At Yale Law School, in which you had a forum hosted by the Yale Federalist Society, in which you were going to have, and it was dedicated to freedom of speech, the idea that you could have an atheist humanist and a conservative Federalist Society member there to debate the idea that we may come from very different political backgrounds, but we both agree on the idea of freedom of speech on college campuses. And we saw what happened. Over 100 Yale Law students shouted down the voices of those they disagreed with, and a police escort had to be called in. This is not some fringe law school. This is one of the absolute gems of the higher legal education system in America today. The best and brightest. Presumably someone there on campus right now will be a future Supreme Court justice, definitely probably a future senator, or maybe even president. Right now at Yale Law School, none of those students, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm happy to be corrected, have been published or chastised for shutting down a forum dedicated to the idea of free speech. You can disagree and not be disagreeable. And we take away the ability of being able to discuss the big ideas, then woe be us, because all those individuals, it's not just, it's easy to write it off and say, well, these are college students and they tend to be pretty leftist. The reality is they're currently voters now, and they're going to be entering the halls of power, either in law or policy or politics or business, very, very soon. And I think it's a call to action for us.
It's broken. We know that it's highly charged and highly partisan. So I would like it to be better, but when you can't find a single Republican member of the committee to vote for this highly qualified, totally objective, even-handed person, then you're seeing a process that is very, very politicized.
I mean, and as Steve was telling us, I mean, I guess Alito was the breaking point there as far as how it's become more and more just straight party line vote. Is there anything, Senator, do you think that could change that trajectory?
What could change the trajectory is, if as far as I'm concerned, when the Republicans decide that they would like to put people on the Supreme Court who observe the rule of law precedent and who has an approach to cases that are even-handed and fair-minded. When they decide that's the kind of person they want on the court and not people who are members of the Federalist Society with an ideological axe to grind, which was definitely the case with all of the Trump nominees, then we will have a process where we will have more Judge Jacksons on the court.
Society. So what is judicial activism, and why are these conservative justices against it?
Well, they describe judicial activism as legislating from the bench, and they both believe in a especially Sharon Kennedy, they believe in a very judicial restraint. You don't really go farther than what the words of the law or the words of the Constitution or whatever document you're studying go right in front of you. And this group that they were speaking to advocates kind of going back in time, trying to figure out what the people who crafted the Constitution or the law meant by using old dictionaries, going through history books, things like that. And so this was basically their audience.
Mary, further that thought about the political capital they're playing on, because in looking at it, particularly in the context of the Federalist Society and their effort to have judges at every single level who in lockstep support the conservative agenda, what are we left with then? Those of us who are the rising majority of this country, the black, brown, mixed race people.
Yeah, they really resent that. And I would say she is super qualified. As all our parents would say, you have to be twice as good to get half as far. And she is that good. And they're not running against her. They're running against a caricature. And they know that they are just cutting these commercials that throw out critical race theory and soft on crime. And it has nothing to do with her record or her qualifications. But I also think it's pretty offensive because they are screaming at her and interrupting her. And when Senator Tom Cotton basically said she wasn't credible, he basically called her a liar. This is just red meat for the base of these senators who are running for president.
Yeah, well, first of all, when President Trump, stunningly to me, it says in the Constitution that he should be the one making these choices. But when he said he's outsourcing the Supreme Court selection process to these organizations like the Federalist Society that folks don't really know all that much about and that are funded by millionaires and billionaires that we don't know. It's not a transparent process. That's very alarming to me. And then to see the way that these big money groups, who often have matters or interests in matters that come before the Supreme Court, this all creates a very corrupt process, or one that is not above the appearance of impropriety. We should not allow these dark money groups to function like this in our free democracy. And I'm, for one, number one, believe that we should pass laws like the Disclose Act, which means that you have to disclose where your resources and money are coming from. We need more transparency, and the Supreme Court they're losing legitimacy because they have no ethics laws. They could literally give paid speeches before groups that have an interest in the matters that come before them. It's a process that really opens up for corruption, and we need to end